beloved sister city. I like that. I told my colleague my grandmother was born in Budapest, so even more connection between. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. It's my first foreign trip for 2 years now. So Corona is over. My hair has grown over the last year. This picture is 1 year old. So, and I would be happy maybe if you have any question, any discussion. We're here at university campus, so please feel free to interrupt, ask me, so that I just don't present you my thoughts. For me, it's very stimulating to be in a context like this, which has, in some points, a very different approach from the one that I'm used to. I heard some positions in the morning that wouldn't have been mine, but I mean, it's very interesting for me to learn something about how you do things. I mean, my task here is now to tell you a little bit about how we do things in Vienna, at Vienna Business Agency. I was also the organizers asked me a little bit about to give recommendations to Budapest. I don't think that I'm in a position to do that. I can tell you how we think that things should be done, how we try to do things, and we can learn from each other. So that is what I'm trying to do today. The topic that I've been given is entrepreneur-friendly city. What can Budapest do for its entrepreneurs? So I'll focus especially on the first part, and maybe we can discuss what Budapest can do or already is doing or should do differently to be an entrepreneur-friendly city. These are the 4 points that I was preparing for today. Vienna and Budapest, so for me also to help where I am now. Vienna Agency, so my employer, where I'm working. Role of enterprises and some policy examples from Vienna, and as I said, I'm happy for your questions also during the presentation. So Vienna and Budapest, I did some geographical turning around, so Danube is flowing into each other. On the left you see Vienna, on the right Budapest, so we're connected by this river. Rather similar in typology. So that is now, I think, the old presentation, but it's the same content, but somehow a bit less colors. The area, rather similar. Population, Vienna now is a little bit bigger, and here I came to the first difference between Vienna and Budapest. Data is from Eurostat, my analysis. We did have an average population growth over the last 2 decades in Vienna of 1.1% every year. I don't know the exact figure, but it's been almost 500,000 inhabitants that we added since 1987, when Vienna reached a low point in its population, and since then it's been growing more or less rapidly. So here I detected a rather big difference between our cities in terms of demographies. GDP, Vienna has a bigger GDP, almost double in nominal terms in the year 2020, but in real terms, Budapest has been growing much more rapidly over the last 20 years. So my calculation, again, based on Eurostat data, is that Budapest economy has been growing by almost 3% every year, while Vienna was growing at 1.2% in this period when we saw one big crisis. The last 2 crises are not included in this data yet. And then if you have a look at it on power purchasing parities, Budapest even has a bigger GDP than Vienna. I mean, power purchase, PPP, not PPS, power purchasing parities is a difficult concept somehow, but still there is. Budapest is very rich. And Vienna also is a rich city, but here in this definition, it's richer. But if you look at monthly salaries, I took this from Numbeo. Difficult to put a figure, but at least you have some source that you can use. We have 2.5 million euros average month net salary after taxes in Vienna, and 850 in Budapest, which is a difference, and is a difference for the incentive that it gives to entrepreneurs and what the city should do and can do. As demography was somehow important, I also plotted the geographical, the age distribution of Vienna and Budapest, and you see that Budapest is, I think, on the average 2 years older than Vienna. It's probably a good distribution for today, that you have a peak here at the working at the work age of 40 to 44-year-olds, but this difference here will somehow turn into a liability over the next decades for Budapest, probably. This is something also where what Vienna is not struggling with, but it's a very big topic for Vienna to cope with this influx of population, with the rather rapid growth. But it's a very helpful argument on the economic campus in Vienna. So some words about Vienna Business Agency, because that's Vienna Business Agency, where I'm employed, is basically what we are taking as what it needs to build an entrepreneur-friendly city. We're an institution founded in 1982 based on a proper Viennese law, so it's always difficult for us to tell if we're public or if we're private. We're somehow both. We're based on this Viennese law. We own ourselves, but the city of Vienna has the control basically of our governing bodies. Our beneficiaries are companies and ventures in Vienna, and currently we do have 170 staff, so it's one of the biggest development agencies in Europe, which is helpful in the sense that we do have a very ample portfolio, and we try to connect these different parts of our portfolio, and if this works, then it's a very big plus for development of for our mission for the development of the local economy. So the three pillars that Vienna Business Agency is active in, is providing, is working at. We do give grants. We do support about 500 development projects every year. We are a big actor in the field of real estate. We do hold almost more or less 3 million square meters of land in Vienna, making us one of the biggest land owners in the city of Vienna. It's almost 1% of the land surface of Vienna, and we did develop, I think it was 6 million square meters over the last 40 years. So Vienna Business Agency has a tradition of intervening in the development of the city. And we offer a lot of services. I'll come to that later. We do have more or less 10,000 contact with about 10,000 companies every year through our different channels. And by this, we as an institution altogether invest more or less 75,000 euro annually. So here I put this first question that I was given, and I try to orient my presentation somewhat along some of these questions that I have been given. How can cities like Budapest reach the economic goals via developing their enterprises? Basically, that would be that's what we do. That's what we do at Vienna Business Agency. That's the institution that is one principal actor that is trying to develop or to reach the economic goals of the city of Vienna in economic development. So a little bit more about what this is more in detail. It is about 500 grants per year. It's 75,000 euro of grants that we give to companies, ranging from research calls. So these are projects that have a very long horizon. They are funded up to €500,000 euros of funding, and are very we support a lot of very risky projects, basically, going down to the field of business location. It's somehow difficult to translate. These are projects that are more oriented towards the local development in shopping streets, helping small companies grow, helping to present their business model, to develop their business model, to make first steps of internationalization. And this is where our projects are located in Vienna. Over the last, I think this data set was for about 15 years. So we do support projects all over the city. That's one of the, for us, important parts, that we are not focused on just central business areas, but we try to spread our activity as far as possible, and especially then using grants as a tool to connect with companies, not only in the context of this one given project, but also develop a relationship with them, knowing what their needs are, because we, on the one hand, we as an institution can be in a position to help them with these needs, or we know who can help them. We connect them with the institution, the people in the city, but also in the private sector. Real estate, our second pillar. So Vienna Business Agency is a big landholder in the city of Vienna. So our initial task back in the 80s was principally to use this land, develop this land for economic purposes, and give companies a new space where they can grow better. Mostly it was also a process of, the companies were somehow moving to the outskirts of the city throughout this process. This is something that we would not do now in this intensity that we did back in the 80s. But that was one of our principal aims, and we still do this to develop land for economic purposes. There we act as owner, so we own land and we give land, we lease land to companies. We develop real estate, so we develop buildings. What you see here on this slide is one building that we built in 2003-05, so the zeros of the current century, where we experimented with a lot of innovations in the field of energy efficiency, and I just recently had a discussion with a colleague from the city administration that is tasked with helping the city not to use any gas until the year 2040, raus aus Gas, so no usage of gas anymore, which is an enormous task for a city like Vienna. And he told me that this building still is a very useful prototype in the field of economic buildings in Vienna. This was developed by my colleagues, so they develop and then built these kind of buildings. And we also act as facilitator for the private sector, so that third parties develop usages, know what we need in the city, where to build in the city, and connect companies that do have certain technology with builders, with companies, tell them what they need, so to introduce some transparency in this market. So our second pillar, real estate. Sometimes, not always, sometimes these activities are connected with giving grants, with renewing the production facilities of companies or of innovation projects of what type soever. One example that I put here is the biotech laboratories in the south of Vienna. It's very big. Here also, I think one advantage of Vienna, which probably is luck for us, I think. Vienna is a very stable city, also politically. These projects on these sites, I don't know when development started, but it's a multi-decade process of development. So it started in the somewhere in the 20th century to start develop this location. And we're still working on this. One of the latest projects there was a biotech startup labs. So we built labs there for startups that they can have office space connected with laboratories for 1 or 2 persons, so very small, something that the private sector does not offer. So these are the kind of things that we see our task in the first place. Sometimes it happens to us that we provide some solutions that are needed or that we think that are needed, like startup offices. We did a lot of this also 15, 20 years ago, and somehow the market now has reached a phase where they are perfectly well provided by the private sector. So we are reducing these offers because there is no use for us as a public actor to be active in this field where the private sector can offer something that maybe even be better than what we did offer. And then we have a wide range of services for companies supporting businesses on site. So our colleagues, they visit companies, they have a look how they produce energy, what their neighbors are, if they do have a good telecom access, if they want to grow, if on the spot next to them there might be development of housing which might then affect the sites. They help them to initialize innovation projects, etc., etc. So there's a lot of potential in visiting companies and also getting to know them, connecting them with our offers and the offers that the city has for them and the regulatory environment that they're working in. Business and creativity, we do have for almost 20 years now, 15 to 20 years, a focus on the creative industries. So culture and creativity is for Vienna very important. I think Budapest is in a somewhat similar position, that there is a big potential not only in the artistic field but also in this ecosystem, these milieus to produce economic wealth, to create companies in the field of the creative industries. International business investment promotion is, I think, is also standard to try to attract companies to Vienna. Startup services has become more and more important, supporting startups. I mentioned these offices for small companies, which we do not do that much. This startup ecosystem approach has become much more important. For 3 years now, we do have a big startup festival, Vienna Up, which connects these actors in Vienna and tries to bring investors, companies, startups, people, whatever, to Vienna to participate in this ecosystem. So a central part of this approach is to be as open as possible as a city and as an ecosystem to be attractive for outsiders. And in the field of technology services, we connect business and research, also a lot of hard daily work to connect them. Well, my third part, any questions? So I'll go through my presentation otherwise. Third part, the role of enterprises, also something that I was asked, how can enterprises help solve problems for cities? I think enterprises for a big thing are the only ones that can solve a lot of problems. So it's interesting to be asked a question like this sometimes. I try to be academic, probably that's completely wrong, but this is from my practical view. A take on what do enterprises to help cities solve problems? Production, companies produce goods, services that are needed. Innovation, companies translate research into marketable products. So you need them to bring things into the market that are from the academic sphere, in the abstract sphere, to bring new things into life. And they produce wealth, finally. I did have this discussion over lunch. to build a subway line, you need taxes to pay for the railway tracks and for everything that you need around it. Companies provide jobs, they produce value, and they pay these taxes, or they help paying these taxes. In our work over the last 10 years at least, the part of innovation probably was the most important one. So we often talked about ourselves as an innovation agency. So this was something that is very important. I thought about startups that are somehow important for my daily life that came up over the last years. Probably if you sit down and think about it yourself, you also come up with a long list of companies, startups from Budapest that are important to you as citizens or as employees for a public institution. School Fox it connects me with one of the schools of my kids. They tell me that he's sick, or if there is some problem, or if he had a fight and he has to come back home, or if he lost some schoolwork or whatsoever. Exploreal, company of a friend of mine actually, they work in the field of prop tech. They analyze contracts of real estate transactions, and so basically we managed to buy a flat through them, so they bring transparency to the market. Desk Pilot is a company that we were the first user as Vienna Business Agency. This is a very young startup. They try to help companies or institutions with this difficult development now of people are working at home, people are working at the office. You don't want people to work at the same place every time. Maybe you want to mix people, you want different settings of or constellations of employees. So we did have 2 weeks of test phase with them where we tried also them to help to improve their product. So I went to office every day and I got assigned a new place to work, new colleagues of our 170 staff, which was very interesting, somehow chaotic, but Spock is something to sell old stuff online. Lead Horizon is very present, or used to be very present in Vienna. They do PCR testing for Corona, so I think they did some, I don't know how many million tests of Corona in Vienna. Refurbed, they recycle electronic products, telephones, whatsoever, etc., etc. There are also 2 big commercial success or investment successes of the last time Go Student and Bitpanda. Go Student is providing teaching. They help with the kids need some teaching, or university students need additional teaching online. And Bitpanda is a Bitcoin investment platform. I mean, there are also ecological questions, there are sociological questions behind this product, but they are new introductions into the market, and they are valued at more than €1 billion, both of them, for the first time from Viennese examples. So, just to come back here, this innovation was for us a focal point over the last year. Maybe this will change somewhat. We did not have really a look at supply of goods over the last 10 years. Goods were available. This is different now, or maybe this stays, maybe this will change again, but so this is open for discussion, I think, somehow. Where to focus on your activities and where enterprises are really needed in the future to solve problems, or where the problems are. And then I'll end with some policy examples from Vienna, trying to refer to this question that I was given, what are non-conventional opportunities to create an entrepreneur-friendly environment? And I focused on 2 aspects. The one is talent. It's a very prominent argument in my sphere. talent, how to attract talent, how to develop talent, how to retain talent. And I thought about some projects that we are active at the moment. Business immigration is a big topic. It's very difficult in the especially for foreigners from third countries to start working in Vienna in this case. There are a lot of legal requirements, and we did set up a special office to help them to cope with this complex situation. Something that caught my attention when I researched several web pages of European development agencies for a different project recently was the use of English as a business language. We do have deficits there in Vienna, but we work on it. I think the further east you go, the less English you read, and the more difficult it gets for foreigners to invest, to use this place. So this is something that caught my attention. Expert services, we do have an expert center connected somehow to the bio, so if people come from abroad, live in Vienna, that they do have somebody who helps them integrate, to organize their daily lives in a new environment. Bilingual schools, very important for people who come from abroad. If you come from abroad and do not speak Hungarian, it's very difficult to start your life. If you do have kids that are at school age, almost impossible probably. So this is a topic. Resentments of every kind. We did a lot of analysis in Vienna of how expats feel, how they arrive in Vienna, what they do. There are plenty of areas where cities can work and can help to become more entrepreneurial friendly through this task. I mean, we had this presentation of my colleague Eva Keil in the morning. Women and groups that are not so present in policy discussions must be included in the organization of services in structures, because otherwise you, as was the neoliberal argument, I think you said, you lose, it's not efficient. So this would be, speaking from the economic policy point of view, this would be a central argument. It would be stupid not to do this. Focus on available options for care, child care, like free kindergarten is one instrument that we are having in Vienna. That's just extremely important to get a company running. If you do not have the support, like we learned during COVID, for somebody to take over the care needs that you have as a person, as a family, then you can't be entrepreneurially active. So this is extremely important for an entrepreneurial city to have a look at this. Affordable housing, of course. I mean, there is. I think that's maybe a plus for Budapest, that it's in an international comparison relatively probably. I don't know the exact details here. Affordable, but still you need to have housing that is available for everyone to build companies. And the second argument that I wanted to make was cooperation in any kind. So do try to initiate cooperation among different fields. There was the other presentation that I heard in the morning about open data. So my second point here, enable companies to access resources of city administrations. City administrations do have an enormous sea of potential data of things that companies can use, can help better, can need. I mean, I did mention here data, infrastructure, real estate, know-how, etc. So for an entrepreneurial city, it's very helpful if city administration manages to establish structures that enable private actors to connect, to access what they have. This is something where we are working at. We do have several services and platforms and events whatsoever to support this. One of my points. Initiate common quest for solutions. We do have a co-creation lab. I think that's a rather standard instrument already. You do have a problem, try to formulate it, go on the quest to find a solution. There will be people who help you solve these problems. And maybe they manage to, where am I? They create wealth for you and for your city in the process of doing so. Smart application of procurement law. Cities do buy a lot of stuff. Maybe you think about who you buy it from. There we also, as a development agency, did have a project that is now migrated basically to the city administration as such, but it's a very difficult topic. And then be visible, this Vienna Up, marketing, bring people together and talk about it, be visible internationally and be visible also in your city. Let people know what the companies are doing for their daily lives. I think is necessary so that this culture can somehow develop. So that was it from my part. I hope there were some ideas that might have been of use for your work. Thank you very much. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer you. Please.
I have a question for you. Thank you very much for your presentation. My name is Csaba Kasztri, and I'm teaching at the University of Public Service on the department which is responsible for the municipality government, for example, and also for e-government, and also the head of the Research Institute of Cybersecurity. And I'm also deeply involved in the Hungarian cybersecurity innovation ecosystem. That is the background why I'm asking the following thing. What I see that there is a much more room for development, not just in general in the startup ecosystem, like providing a good city, providing all those services like you mentioned, but there is a room for the public services as well. And do you have a solution for that? Let's say that there is a startup that would offer some innovation for the improvement of public services. Do you have a contact at the city, for example? We can work together with the startup, give information, help in the creation of the problem, help in the integration process, help in the, let's say, creating the proof of concept or the demo, just to help the startup to go to the market, and besides going to the market, to help to improve the public services of the city.
Yeah, I mean, there are many problems in this process that you sketched now. I hope that Vienna Business Agency is basically a friend of this person or of this team that wants to develop a project like this. And I hope that in a case like this, we would have things to help them develop their business plan. We would know how to bring them together with what kind of city personnel to discuss and to develop their things. I mean, it's difficult to, I would put it that way, maybe you do need actors that want to cooperate and that want to participate and want to better the things, and you have to strengthen these actors and you have to establish programs that are structurally helpful to strengthen these people within an administrative system. So one thing, us as an institution to be responsible, and on the other hand try developing programs that then strengthen actors that want changes in this field. So, but of course a project like this needs a myriad of connection points somehow. And yeah, I mean, basically you got to be a friend of this approach, and that's what we as our institution, so if I go back to where I started here, with our 170 staff, I hope that we are manpower that tries to help these people and also represent them in the public sphere.
Another question would be, you mentioned the co-working spaces.
Yeah.
Are those co-working spaces free selected startups, or should they pay for that?
Well, the ones that we ran, simple co-working spaces, so a table and a computer, were just offices, and I think it was paid at market prices, 150, 200 euros per month in Vienna. These laboratories, they also paid at market prices, with the problem that there is no market for this, because market offers either laboratories or office, but the combination does not exist. So there we also charge them. And then, of course, there are now more and more accelerators, different types of combinations between offices, investors, corporates, that then do not really charge something for companies that do have stipendia, other types of things. But we, as an institution, in the field of real estate, we charge market prices. We charge market prices for products that mostly are not present in the market. Thank you very much, and hope to see you in Vienna.